Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about not being heard. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I work in a company where we work with autonomous teams and no one listens to my ideas. What can I do? Well, if nobody's willing to listen to you, and you work with autonomous teams, I'm guessing here that you basically have a bunch of people working in silos and they don't actually work cross-functional in like, or rather they have cross-functional teams but they don't actually collaborate between the teams. And my guess is that you're finding it hard to move anything around, and my further guess is that either you have very involved managers who control everything from top, or they don't do anything basically and it's practically chaos. I have a little bit of experience with both of those. Pros and cons, pros and cons. But if you want someone to hear you out and you can't get them to listen, you usually have two ways of going about this. One thing is to raise your own credibility, or do what I like to call proxy ideas. And we can talk about both. So raising the easiest, or rather the most useful thing you can do, it's not the fastest thing, but this helps in so many areas. There are so many people who underestimate the power of influence in software development. You have no idea how little it takes for you to get to a point where you're basically looked at as a god in the engineering department. There, where people just or a genius or something like that, where people just assume that you're right all the time. It's a bit of work to get that in there, and once you need to maintain it, but once it's there, you will be surprised at how much you can make things happen, even though you're in a position where you shouldn't maybe really do this, but you get the sort of influence where you can move people around. So by raising your own value, it really comes down to proving that you are worth hearing out. And this is very easy if you're a what I call a blah blah person, a person who talks to like stakeholders who don't know anything about the thing that you're talking about, because then it's down to charisma and being prepared. In engineering, it's a little bit of that as well, but it's also that you actually have to have brains, real brains. You have to, because that's the problem when you talk to smart people. When you're trying to make smart people follow you, you have to be smarter than them, or give them something that makes them go, wow, yeah, I didn't really think about it that way. That's actually really clever. And the smarter the people, in many cases, the harder that is. So you have to ask yourself, are you willing to make this sort of investment? Can you make this sort of investment? You don't always have to be smarter. I hope that you understand that I'm not dead serious about that part, but there is a grain of truth in that. You can be appreciated by people even though they are smarter than you, or like, okay, I feel I have to say this because I always get to this point with some person on the comment section saying that, oh, but Frederick, haven't you thought about this and that? And I kind of go, yes, there is no way to evaluate accurately what a smart person is. I'm sorry that I said anything. I was trying to make a point, but of course, let's dive into the definition of what every word that has ever been created means in painful detail. And yes, of course, I'm too dumb to understand that there's more than one definition. Anywho, you can get there by showing that you have good ideas, showing that you can deliver, showing that you can inspire people and so forth. And once you get to a point where people are willing to think, and that where you they have a general opinion that you're actually pretty smart, the rest of it comes down to the same thing that everybody who wants to have an idea here heard out comes down to, and that is to make people feel a self-interest from doing the thing that you want. Either it is because of your authority, and if you don't have any authority, the only thing you can really do is to try to lobby, try to influence from the outside, and this is works. It works very. If you really do have good ideas, engineers are often very willing to listen to you. The thing that you're fighting most of the time is that they're very lazy. and mostly focused on their own work. So if you want a refactor to happen, or you want some cross-team type of collaboration going because you know that you can't deliver this improvement that you want to without 2 or 3 teams being involved, well, then you have the exact same problem as when someone tries to invite their friends to a vacation. I usually say, if you want to synchronize more than 3 adults, forget about it. Just don't do it. You just go and say, we're going to do this thing on that date. Whoever is there, we will do this thing with. Because it's impossible for, I don't know, it's a mystery of the universe to synchronize more than 3 people. It's the same thing in software engineering. You getting everybody to commit at the same time with equal levels of investment, or semi-equal investment, is like impossible. It's actually, in my opinion, usually just easier to create a task force to get the buy-in from all the people, all the stakeholders, and just say, are we allowed to touch all of your code bases and show you what we're doing, so that they feel like they're involved, but to basically do the work for you is the only way. That's the one way. The other way is to use proxy ideas, because if you are not able to get the buy-in from all the people, then you can make someone else believe that they had the idea. And this is something that works really well, because the thing is, you can be a very intelligent software developer, you can be a very charismatic software developer, you can be all of these things, you can be a born leader, but if you're dealing with people who either don't care because they're not all that engaged in the work that they do, or maybe it's because you don't have the energy to basically become a full-time manager, even though that's technically, it might not be your job, well, the influence that you have and the connections that you make with people is still going to be very useful to you, because even though you can't influence the entire company, you can influence the key people. And this is the way that you make the world do what you want. This is how politics works. This is how sales work. It's not about getting everybody to love your idea. It is about getting the right people to love your idea. And having proxy ideas is a very, very good thing if you want to play this game. So getting good with the key players. And now I'm talking about the key players. And the key players is not actually always going to be like the section head or the team lead or someone like that. It is the people with the strongest voice in the different groups. Sometimes that's going to be the tech lead in the other teams, and sometimes it's going to be just a senior developer, or someone who is, or it can be a junior developer if you have a bunch of seniors who really like this junior. It doesn't really matter. Identify the people who make the difference, the people who have the strongest influence on the different groups, and get them to buy into the idea. Make them have the idea. Basically what you're doing is that instead of talking to the company and using your own influence to try to influence people, you're borrowing their credibility and their influence. You're making them ambassadors for your idea. So if you can make them feel special, if you can get them to buy into your idea, and then maybe create a little task force, a little squad or a group, and you just sit and talk to them, and you try to befriend them and try to make them see the validity in your idea, but try to primarily focus on just getting comfort with them. If you can get them to repeat the thing that you are saying, you will reach more people. Because it's like a broadcast. If you're just the only one broadcasting, you're not going to reach as far. But if you have a repeater, or a signal repeater, and in this case it's going to be the best one, because they're actually going to be repeating your signal in a much stronger fashion than you could alone, well, then you can basically reach everybody. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're in a company where nobody's listening to your ideas, you have 2 options usually. Either you raise your own credibility, which makes people believe that you have a lot of good ideas and they will listen to you. This is usually a lot of work, and it requires you to both have social skills and technical hard skills, because social skills you get away with, business mindset as well, if you're in an environment where you're dealing with non-technical people, but you're dealing with engineers. And engineers only really respect people who bring results, people who can make them go, oh, cool, I didn't really think about it that way, or this thing is he or she is saying is actually pretty smart. Smart people follow other smart people, usually. Not always, but in many cases. The other thing you can do is to use proxies. You can make other people believe that someone besides yourself had the idea. So if you connect with the people who make the difference in the company, the people who have the most influence, and you befriend them and have them think that your idea is a good idea, then the others don't have to know that it was your idea, because they're going to see these puppets, well, not puppets, your ambassadors that you have created, and think that they are the smart people who had the idea. This is not always a good thing for you if you want to get the credit yourself, but if you play your cards right, that can still happen. However, don't underestimate this, guys. This is a very powerful way of communication, and it is the thing that usually gets the job done, especially when you're dealing with multiple groups of people. Have a great day.